Welcome to Scarlet Tavern, where every tale is laced with mystery, nerd lore, and a splash of chaos. Today's story, one that reshaped tabletop gaming, created an empire of nerd culture, and somehow made rolling dice cool again. We're talking about Critical Role, and how it didn't just ride the wave of modern D&D, it was the wave. So what started as a home game among friends exploded into a cultural phenomenon, drawing millions of viewers, launching a media empire, and changing how we see D&D forever. This is Scarlet Tavern.
Dink.
All right.
Dink.
So, something a little bit different. We're kind of testing the waters with these. We're gonna start first season. We did a couple nerdy things. We didn't do a lot. This season we haven't done any. So we really, of course, D&D is where everything started for us. So what we're actually going to start doing mostly next season, we'll probably sprinkle a little here and there this season, but mostly next season, after every 6 or so episodes of true crime, all of that, we'll throw in 2 episodes of nerdy topics, mostly D&D and stuff like that. And then what we're trying to gauge from this is if you guys like this, or at least Pam and I, we didn't talk to Ben about this part. Mm-hmm. We considered if these perform well, is creating a separate D&D podcast where it's not playing D&D like we have our other one, but it's D&D discussions. Like we can bring in people from D&D communities, and I have tons of DM friends that are on TikTok and stuff like that. Like we can bring in our friend Andrew, who wrote our theme song for the last campaign.
I was a little shocked when I saw this on here because we're so used to doing murder and mayhem and chaos. I was thinking,
what did Critical Role do?
That's exactly okay. Did Liam finally snap? I always knew he'd be the one.
I could talk about Ashley Johnson's ex. That would be some shit.
Well, if we did that, that would be the case of how
Brian
a fandom.
W. Foster.
That would be the case of how a fandom rose up and lynched a guy.
But the person that's supposed to be in charge of Scarlet Tavern had no idea.
We were doing this.
We were doing this, or for the fact that we have the entire season 4 all scheduled for everything.
It's okay. I'm always the last to know everything. Why should this be different?
So it's like until the end of the season, next season, it's pretty much 6-2-6-2.
I just pencil whip things. That's all. I just give my stamp of approval, and a magical bottle of scotch every now and again appears. So I'm happy.
You buy your own scotch.
I know, magically appears.
And these are very much discussion episodes when we do the nerdy stuff. A lot of questions, a lot of us discussing whatever. We have a format, quote unquote. But I have discussion cues and stuff like that, but there isn't really like, we're going to tell you information, tell you about Critical Role if you've never known them. If you are a D&D nerd, you know who Critical Role is. If you don't, you've been living under a rock somewhere, or in your mom's basement.
No, that won't be true because most of the D&D players live in their mother's basements.
I didn't know about Critical Role until I literally met you.
Yeah,
and then we started playing D&D. Well, that's how I found out about Critical Role.
Great transition. Discussion cue. When did you first hear of Critical Role? Were you skeptical, blown away? And so each of us will kind of do a little thing on how each one of us heard of Critical Role. I tell mine all the time. I was really depressed. I was in a very dark place. And I talk about it all the time now because mental health matters. Mental health awareness matters, especially in this community, both veteran and D&D community. So I was in a very dark place. I was to the point of taking my own life. I was there. Everything was set. It was ready. I had pills and alcohol set. And I had a roommate at the time. I had lost full custody of my daughter, all of that stuff. So I was in a very dark place. And I said, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to take all these pills. And at this time I was addicted to pain pills. I'm going to take all these pills. I'm going to drink this entire bottle of alcohol, and I'm just going to go to sleep. And I said, I'm going to put something on the TV. That way, if my roommate gets up and I seize or something like that, he can't hear me. So he can't stop me. Very dark, I know. But so I put on YouTube, and the first thing to pop up was campaign 2 of Critical Role. Because I was a late bloomer into Critical Role. Critical Role has now been around for 10 years. 2015 is when they started. So I put it on and started watching these voice actors play these parts and do all this stuff. And I was like, oh, this is really cool. And I watched an entire 4-hour episode. And then I watched another 4-hour episode. And then another. And before I knew it, it was daytime. And I started looking up each one of Critical Role, Matt Mercer especially. Matt Mercer, he's open about his body dysmorphia and things like that. That's why he wears his vests, because it makes him feel safe. And every one of them has some type of mental issue, and they're pretty open about it. And I went, well, if they're surviving all of that, I can too. And that quite literally, Critical Role saved my life, and that's what got me into D&D. That's what got me into Critical Role. And you can ask them, I'm one of the biggest fans of Critical Role that there is. And it's quite literally because I am alive because of them. And one day I will hopefully get to tell them that in person. But that is how I first heard. I know that I started that so the darkness was out of the way first, and then we can go to a little bit of the lighter side. So, yeah.
I was kind of forced into it with D&D, and then they came out with Vox Machina, and that's how I got introduced to campaign 1 and why everybody picked on me for campaign 1. If you didn't know, I played a gnome named Lily for quite a few episodes. And yeah, so they made fun of me because I unknowingly,
it was very much a copy of Pike.
Unknowingly made it like Pike.
And just to re-emphasize that, I eventually bought her the Pike pop. What is those?
Funko
Pop. Yeah, I got her the Pike Funko Pop as well. So just to kind of reinforce that you are indeed Pike.
And we now all own D&D Critical Role dice.
Yeah,
I have almost all of the Funko Pops from Critical Role. I mean, I have Critical Role tarot cards. I'm about to have a new set because I'm buying their new set that's out. Ben.
Honestly, I just kind of heard it from you. Sorry to be anticlimactic, but I mean, I checked them out. They are really entertaining. I guess for me, I'm a huge fan of audio dramas. You know, they would have been like those radio serials way back in the day, but I'm a fan of audio dramas and like those audiobooks. So they're very much right up my alley because sometimes and this is nothing against other D&D podcasters, but almost none of them are trained voice actors, not very well. And they tell a good story, but it's something is just lost there. Critical Role always kind of filled that gap perfectly where it's all their creation, but they're able to actually give legitimate life to the characters to the point where it's like, oh wow, I'm actually really immersing myself. I love it.
And that's we'll kind of discuss a little bit of that as we go through. So before the Kickstarter records, before the Emmy Awards, before the millions of fans, the merchandising, the Amazon Prime deal, Critical Role was just a home game played in a living room. It all started in 2012, actually. A group of voice actors in Los Angeles, Matt Mercer, Liam O'Brien, Travis Willingham, Laura Bailey, Taliesin Jaffe, Sam Riegel, and Marisha Ray, and one other one that we don't mention, gathered to play a Pathfinder one-shot for Liam's birthday / Laura, because Liam and Laura have the same birthday, which is why they were twins in campaign 1.
Oh, that's fine.
They call themselves twins, even though obviously Liam's older. But yeah. But as these things go, one session turned into 2, which, funny enough, I don't have it written in here. So Liam, they had finished the campaign and it was really cool. Liam had texted everybody, was like, "This was so much fun. Let's do it again." Everybody ghosted him.
I think, was Ashley part of this group?
Did I not have her in there?
You did not have
Oh,
Ashley
yeah.
Johnson.
Ashley in there too. Sorry.
Shame on
So
you.
Shame, my favorite one.
they all ghosted him. And then eventually they were like, "Okay, fine, we'll go back and do this." And it eventually became a full campaign. And not just any campaign. This was a game played by professional storytellers. These were people trained in improv, performance, character work, and it showed. Just like Ben said, the characters had emotional arcs, their banter was tight, they laughed like real people, not stilted NPCs. You could tell that there was trust at the table and a shared creative language that most groups only dream of. Still, they weren't trying to make content. They weren't even recording it. It was just a home game, something they did for themselves. That all changed in 2015 when Felicia Day's Geek and Sundry approached them. The pitch: stream the game, make it public. A lot of them were hesitant. There's a kind of sacredness to a home campaign, especially one this personal, but they agreed on one condition. They wouldn't just continue the current campaign because it was too far in. Instead, they would reboot it for D&D 5e. That's why the first episode of Critical Role opens in the middle of things with no origin story, no prologue. They started in medias res, which means in the middle of, with the cast already bonded as their characters. And then, of course, now we have, like, I own the book, Critical Role Origins, which it's the comic book of how everything started.
I need to read that yet.
Really good. I read it in a day. And it's really thick. On March 12th, 2015, the first episode aired live on Twitch. It was a bit clunky, basic camera work, some awkward transitions, but the spark was there. People watching saw something rare, a real emotional game with stakes, improv, and heart. These weren't actors playing D&D. They were players who happened to be actors deeply in love with the game. And it caught on. Slowly at first, word of mouth, Tumblr gifs, Reddit threads, and within a year, Critical Role became the crown jewel of Geek and Sundry's content. But why did this work? It's important to realize that back then, actual play wasn't a thing. Sure, there were podcasts like Acquisitions Inc. or Harmon Quest dabbling in the space, but the idea of people watching others play D&D weekly for hours at a time sounded ludicrous. And yet it worked. There was something magnetic about seeing professional voice actors breathe life into fantasy characters live. It was like watching a play that never ended. Each week added more depth, more tension, more real connections between players. They didn't hold back tears, they didn't hide goofs, and they never stopped rolling the dice.
For those of you who've ever watched Harmon Quest, that was made by Dan Harmon, the guy who created Rick and Morty.
Yep.
It was great. It was funny, but it was more... Because I've watched every episode of Harmon Quest. It was more like a comedy skit. Because every week they would have a guest comedian come in. The one that really sticks out for me is the actress who played Gina in Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Yeah.
She showed on there. She was funny, but you could tell that she never played D&D before. She had never had any interest. I have a sinking suspicion she probably didn't even know what the heck this was.
Yeah.
Because she was like, okay, now again, that's also the actress's kind of demeanor when she, you kind of felt like Gina was there playing. But some actors they had on there, some comedians were like, you could tell they played before. Others were just like, oh, yeah, I don't really know. Like, it was very hit and miss. It was great on Dan Harmon for trying it, but... Yeah. I really felt like he could have actually had some success with it if he dropped that weekly guest appearance, because it was just not working.
We'll skip that first discussion queue because we kind of already talked about first experiences. So listening to Critical Role, a lot of people say it felt too high production to be relatable, while others say it felt like watching friends just being nerds together. Where do you fall? What made it work for you, or what turned you off from it?
Oh, I mean, I never really got a high production feel to it. I could definitely tell later they got more. You could tell they were getting more money, but I think that was just materials. Like, they got a nice table. Matt finally got like a mountain of minis to use, but I never felt like like everything was forced. It really just felt like a bunch of friends just got dumped a load of money, and they were like, "Here, use wisely." And it essentially, imagine if we got like a mountain of money in order to. It's like, here, you can make your D&D experience awesome. That's kind of how it is. I don't feel like
if there's anybody out there,
please do
that,
Please.
so we can give a better production and own a studio and do this legit.
or just give us money.
Yeah, that too.
But yeah, I kind of felt like I really feel like it was a little bit of both. Like they got the money for the high production. I'm using air quotes here. Nobody can see that. But I do feel like they still, for the most part, stay true to their core friends. Now it seems like they just keep bringing a whole bunch of other people in too, but it is.
Yeah, I'll talk about that soon.
I've never actually watched Critical Role besides like their live shows that they have.
We showed you some of the.
I've seen the clips and the one shots
and all of that,
but I've never actually sat and watched an entire episode of Critical Role. I am so sorry.
Watched all 3 seasons.
I listened to it on Spotify.
So, for me, I can definitely see where some people, especially the progression from campaign 1 to campaign 3, where some people see it's high production because now they've got this beautiful studio, they've got lights, they've got music, they've got special effects, all of that kind of stuff. I can see it, but it adds it adds to the experience if you're watching it, but it also adds to the player experience. With them being immersed into that, they're going to give a better performance. Mm-hmm. And just think about it when I do sound effect cues in ours. You guys immediately, I'll do a sound effect and you'll go, what was that? Because your instinct is just to click and you get just immersed in that.
Or when you change the light colors and we're like,
yeah,
oh fuck,
all the lights go from white to red. You go, oh shit, this is a dream, this is a devil, this is something.
Yeah. Oh shit, not again.
Yeah.
I always felt like the people say that when anything, and this isn't just Critical Role, anything gets too high production, I don't know, I feel like I never understand that, because it's like, well, do you want them to keep using
shitty?
An example that's not Critical Role, you wouldn't have know it, but you would. Mystery Science Theater 3000.
Yeah.
When it first started off, it was just a rinky-dink.
Felicia Day.
Yeah. But the origins of it was just a rinky-dink little.
There's just 2 dudes sitting in front of a screen.
Well, it wasn't 2 dudes. It was like,
you know what I mean.
Yeah, but it was just 2 dudes in Minnesota who were just literally doing. Yes, they get a pass.
They're amazing.
Pam is from Wisconsin, so she automatically hates everyone from Minnesota.
So
and Illinois.
If you're from Minnesota, she hates you.
And Illinois.
Don't listen to our podcast if you're from Minnesota.
And Michigan.
Please
go Packers.
But the show started off with that. Literally, Mike Nelson and would talk about how they were literally raiding thrift stores and everywhere
for their costumes and stuff.
Well, costumes, the materials to make the robots and everything like that. And it was, you could tell it was like extremely low production, but it had a charm to it. But now, but even before Netflix, they got picked up by Comedy Central, Sci-Fi. They got more money, so everything got better. And people were like, it's not the same. It's like, yeah, there's better.
More money.
There's more money.
And now I say that because Felicia Day is now part of the new Mystery Science Theater.
Yeah.
She's one of the hosts of it, so she really dug her nails into it. And she's helped elevate it too, because she obviously has this whole nerd fandom of her own from everything she's been in. And for those that don't know who Felicia Day is, if you watch Supernatural, she's Charlie in Supernatural. She's been in almost any sci-fi.
Name it. She's guest starred lately.
She's been in so much stuff.
Eureka.
Yeah, Eureka.
She was great in Eureka.
So
I just still love her from Supernatural.
Yeah,
I've never really watched. I haven't finished watching Supernatural, so
we barely started Supernatural. So okay. Do you think a big part of the appeal is the cast being voice actors? Would the same show have worked if it was just your average game night group like us?
No, it's the voice actors.
It is.
Again,
it truly is.
They bring the professionalism. They're able to use their voices differently. I mean, you've got Laura Bailey is a perfect example. You've got that high posh accent that is Vexalia. excuse me, Vixalia, but then you go to Jesters, which is whatever the hell that is.
So for those that don't know, Laura Bailey is she is trying to think of her ethnicity. Why can't I think of it?
She's got some Filipino ancestry.
Yes.
It's very back there because if you look at
her grandmother's Filipino. Yeah, her grandmother is from the Philippines. So a lot of people say that her Jester accent's a mixture of like Russian and Filipino and like a ton of stuff put together. That's why it's so hard to mimic. Because I've tried and it's hard.
I understand. I can see that. I actually knew someone who was born in the Philippines, and actually 2 people.
If you're in the military, you've known somebody from the Philippines.
Yes.
Yeah, you know who I'm talking about. That's in the
I know.
From the Philippines. I know another one that you don't. You don't know.
I know.
Yeah, I mean, out of our group, I'm the only voice actor for us. No, before this, nobody even played D&D.
Nope.
It was Elliot played a little bit. Ethan was the biggest one, and obviously he's gone now. He's not dead. He's not with us.
He's in Nebraska, which is about the
closest to hell.
Ethan, if you hear this, we love you, but we hate your state.
So I'm the only one that has played D&D the longest. I basically and we'll talk about like how Critical Role affected us. But I basically we were playing our home game and it was kind of the same thing. And I just went, hey, let's I know this is your first time playing D&D, but let's record this.
We didn't want to do it at first. We had a lot of arguments.
We really did.
Over whether or not to start streaming.
Stuff we never told you because we're just what the frig is he dragging us
that we were talking amongst ourselves without even telling Kayde. We really don't want to do this. We're not comfortable with this. That's why some of our first episodes, you'll see they're so bad, but you see a lot of people with their cameras off because we were not comfortable doing this.
And look at you now.
I want my trailer, by the way. You still haven't delivered my trailer.
You can go get it from the trailer park.
Okay.
So do you think they knew what they were creating back then, or was it kind of lightning in a bottle?
They probably had no idea. These are professional. These guys long before Critical Role were very successful, or at least modestly successful voice actors working in the entertainment industry for name any anime or cartoon series that before they were guest stars. So they know the business. They know that fame is fleeting. There's a huge element of luck involved in show business. I mean, just because someone gives you the opportunity, what's that old saying? You can bring a horse to water, but you can't make him drink it. You can plaster these guys out there, but you can't make people watch them.
Yeah, I very much think they had no idea what they were creating.
And I've watched a few interviews, especially with Matt, and again, this is their 10-year anniversary, and they are just amazed where they are now. And listen, and we'll talk about it, because as much as everybody strives to be Critical Role, there's only one Critical Role. Dimension 20 is their own thing, and we'll talk about Dimension 20. But it's just so unique because they are all voice actors. And for people that don't know, so Matt Mercer, who is the DM, if you've ever played Overwatch, he's Cole Cassidy. He used to be called McCree, but they changed his name. In Attack on Titan, he's Levi Ackerman.
Wait, he's Levi?
Yeah, you didn't know that?
No, I love Attack on Titan.
He's Levi, yeah. In One Piece, he's Trafalgar Law. In JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, he's Jotaro Kujo. In Thundercats Roar, he's Tigra. In Justice League Warworld, he's Batman Bruce Wayne. In video games, Fire Emblem Three Houses, he was in Final Fantasy 15. Legends of Zelda, he's Ganondorf in Legends of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom.
I don't play Zelda.
Laura Bailey, obviously she's in Vox Machina. She's Black Widow in Avengers Assemble, the TV show. She is Hinata Hyuga in Naruto. She's Kid Trunks in Dragon Ball Z Kai. She's Abby in Last of Us Part 2. She's Kate Diaz, if you've ever played Gears of War. She's Kate Diaz, yeah. World of Warcraft, she's Jaina Proudmoore.
I think I did know that one.
Yeah. Persona 4, she was in Marvel Spider-Man video game. She's Mary Jane in that. Travis in Avengers Assemble is Thor for any animation. And he's also a lot of the voices in the Ben 10 reboot. He's a lot of the monster voices that Ben turns into. He's in Sophia the First as King Roland. In Halo 5, he's Frederick 104. Marisha Ray, she is in she plays Batgirl in the Batgirl animation. Let's see, Taliesin is, I know Taliesin in most video games, he's the voice of the Flash in video games and animation. Liam has been he's in Star Wars Rebels. He's the fifth brother in Star Wars Rebels.
Really?
Yep. Transformers War for Cybertron animation, he's Air Raid. World of Warcraft, he's Illidan Storm Rage. Actually, all of them have been in World of Warcraft.
I don't think I've ran into that one yet.
That
character yet.
Ashley Johnson, of course, it was in Blind Spot, the TV show. That's what made her leave. She was in Growing Pains growing up.
Yeah,
she was Chrissy Seaver.
I didn't realize that until like years. I was like,
she's Chrissy Seaver
because I used to watch that show religiously.
She in animation, she's Gretchen Grundler in Recess.
Wait, she's Gretchen?
Yeah,
she's Gretchen.
Yeah, she's Gretchen Grundler.
Okay, we need to watch Recess now.
Of course, Last of Us, she's Ellie. Mm-hmm. Tales from Borderlands. Sam is Donatello in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles from 2003 on.
Oh.
I haven't seen it.
Transformers Rescue Bots, he's Blue. DuckTales 2017, he's Don Carnage. He's Phoenix Wright. He was in Final Fantasy. So there's a lot that they've done. And that's just naming a few.
Yeah, I mean, suffice to say, they are all very successful ones. So I think they know more than ever that you can start a project, but will it be successful is another thing. I think, and I'm sure we're going to cover it, they really were able to get in on the ground floor on this.
So when Critical Role first aired, Dungeons & Dragons was quietly healing from a long, complicated history. For decades, it had been labeled as a nerdy subculture at best and a satanic gateway at worst. The 5th edition of D&D, released in 2014, was already starting to smooth the rough edges. It simplified the rules, made roleplay more accessible, and worked hard to shed the lingering image of dusty rulebooks and gate-kept hobby shops. But Critical Role didn't just ride the coattails of that comeback. They became the engine behind it. By 2016, the show had built a massive community, and D&D's popularity began to surge in ways Wizards of the Coast hadn't seen since the 1980s. Local game stores started reporting an influx of new players, many of whom were complete beginners walking in asking for the Critical Role version of D&D. Some didn't even know the term Dungeon Master. They knew Matt Mercer, which we'll get into the Matt Mercer effect later. Sales of the player's handbook skyrocketed. Dice makers, character artists, and third-party creators saw a wave of support from a new emotionally invested fan base. It wasn't just a game anymore, it was a fandom. And the most surprising part, these weren't just existing nerds coming back to the table. This was entirely new blood. People who had never rolled a die before. People who had never heard of the Forgotten Realms or Dragonlance or Gary Gygax. What brought them in wasn't mechanics or lore, it was storytelling. What Critical Role did differently was this. It reframed Dungeons & Dragons not as a game, but as an emotional narrative engine. They showed a world where characters cried, bled, loved, lost, and grew. Arcs had climaxes and payoffs. The stakes were more than hit points and loot. They were character deaths, betrayals, romances, and redemptions. They made you care. It wasn't about rolling a nat 20. It was about what that nat 20 meant for the character's journey. And because it was weekly, it became episodic. Fans tuned in the same way they would for Game of Thrones or The Last of Us. You didn't just watch the show, you followed it. You speculated. You cried when Molly Mock died.
Spoilers.
Yeah, spoilers. You screamed at how do you want to do this? You shipped characters. You made fan art. It created a space where being emotionally invested in a game was normal, even celebrated. WotC, which we'll start saying now, Wizards of the Coast is WotC, quickly realized the power of what they had. They leaned hard into Critical Role's success. The popularity of Campaign 1 setting led to the official release of Explorer's Guide to Wildmount. Think about that. A homebrew world created by one DM at his table became part of official D&D canon. That's not just influence, that's industry shifting. Meanwhile, tools like D&D Beyond started seeing massive user spikes. Streamers, podcasters, and actual play groups sprang up everywhere. The actual play became its own genre. We started seeing an evolution. D&D was no longer just a game. It was a platform, a canvas for performance and art form. And just like that, the humble game that was once feared by religious groups and mocked by mainstream media had become cool. Dungeons and Dragons wasn't in the basement anymore. It was in the spotlight. And have you guys personally seen this cultural shift around D&D? Have your local shops gotten busier? Are more friends willing to try it now who wouldn't have 10 years ago? Like, think about this. Would you two have done, would you have done D&D 10 years ago?
No, absolutely not. I didn't know what D&D was. I thought roleplay was extremely nerdy. My nerdum was literally Harry Potter and Star Trek. That was it. Those were like my big two. I didn't like Star Wars. I didn't like D&D. I'm starting to get an anime, which I never liked besides...
And manga now.
And manga. So...
Thanks to us buying her manga.
I need to actually finish that. I don't want to read it too fast because I only have like one. True.
But yeah, so like, I mean... 10 years ago, would you have played D&D? I mean, you've always been a nerd.
Well, it's not this. Honestly, no.
Not as nerdy as us now.
No. Honestly, my nerd,
it wasn't cool.
It wasn't that. It's just...
Like for me, that's how it was. It wasn't cool.
There are things in my life I associate things that, like, events in my life. Like, think about me. For me, I don't like rap and hip-hop music. So, just... Only one of the reasons, for the most part, is because where I grew up in New York, all the losers, all the problem children, all the guys that in my neighborhood that I didn't, that I grew up around that were troublemakers, all listened to rap and hip hop music. I equated that with, that's bad. I don't like it. Now, obviously, as I grew up, I started liking a couple things, but for the most part, I don't like it.
So just a little asterisk here. Ben is not saying that if you listen to rap, you're a loser.
Or hip hop.
Yeah, I'm not, obviously. But just what...
But you might be.
Some people are, but that doesn't mean everybody is. But for me growing up, I avoided it because I didn't want to be like that. Now, when I was in high school, we had a D&D club. Yeah, I went.
Keep in mind, this is a Catholic school.
Yeah, it was a Catholic high school, but a lot of the satanic
it was Christian,
was
Catholic.
The evangelical Southern Baptists who were doing it. The Catholic Church never really took official position on this stuff. I'm sure there were priests who probably didn't approve of it, but the Franciscan monks who ran my high school, they were more concerned with the football team winning. They were not concerned with D&D club. Our computer teacher formed a D&D club, but all the guys in the D&D club were guys I didn't like. They were nerds. Like we had that connection, but that was like our only connection. They were just, I didn't like them. I didn't want to be around them because they were weird. Like they're all not because of D&D, but just because they themselves were like,
smelly kids.
One of them actually was.
Well, I mean, that's it's such a culture shift. So back in especially 80s, 90s, even early 2000s, the kids that played D&D, they were the fat, smelly, weird kids that didn't talk to anybody. You thought they were about to shoot up the school.
Some of them, I legitimately thought that.
But look at it now. I mean,
now
we're all military veterans.
Yeah.
We we're not like, I got told by my ex-fiance all the time, you don't look like the typical D&D player. And she was like, I like that because you don't look like the typical D&D player.
Like even just fantasy, the fantasy genre, it took COVID. She'll tell you because she was there when it happened. It took COVID for me to just because before, just around the time when COVID hit, I was listening to true crime podcasts and books like that. Well, all the crap going around COVID when it was first happening, we got doom and gloom, people dying from COVID, and I'm reading about, some, murders and stuff. I was getting depressed. I told her, I was like, I got to figure out something else to listen to or do something else because this is killing me. So I bought The Hobbit.
Yeah.
And
then cue stuff like Old Gods of Appalachia.
Yeah. I just started looking for more audio dramas and anthology podcasts, and I found there, and I just kind of went from there. And now I love fantasy and D&D. Now, in terms of this cultural shift, I mean, I know it's happened, but I didn't see it because I kind of joined in once it was literally mainstream.
I mean, and like we said before, I kind of like shoved everybody into D&D. So we were all playing Star Wars: The Old Republic. We had a guild online that we played, and we had our friends who are with us now, and we said, hey guys, why don't we try D&D? We're role playing in this. It's basically D&D because we're rolling, we're doing all that stuff. And everybody's like, yeah, cool. So we played Star Wars D&D. It was horrible. Because I had never DM'd before. I had played D&D on and off my whole life. I snuck it a lot because I was from the South, evangelical Christian. My family thought it was evil. So I snuck it a lot and stuff like that. But it was horrible. And so I was like, I looked at everybody and I was like, okay, do we want to play actual D&D?
Yeah.
Like, we can play actual D&D. I will create a world. I will do all of that. And everybody was like, yeah, sure. Why not? So I spent the next 8 weeks writing every single day. And I built this huge world called Talamar. And
here we go.
Then we finally got to play, and we were playing. Again, it was a home game for us. We hadn't started this yet. We were kind of like Critical Role. We started midway through our campaign, and we started, and we had a couple problem players that we removed.
Yeah.
And then we started getting into the groove, and then this world just crumbled around me because
here we go.
The players decided to do something that
we stole the ship.
They shouldn't have done, and it ruined everything. So I had to restart everything.
Yeah, we stole the ship. We had fun. It was awesome, and we've been paying for it ever since, and we can't ever not hear about it.
Okay.
Move on with your life. Wait.
Fine, I'll blow up your ship.
Please don't.
No.
It's the same ship.
And then me rolling the natural 20.
Now,
in this campaign,
doing it again.
And not having to rewrite the story, but having to rewrite the entire world this time.
So, do you think D&D is more accessible now or more intimidating with all the actual plays and polished productions? Does it make the game more approachable or harder to get into?
I say it's more approachable, but at the same time, I think it's easier for people to walk away from it in the sense of I follow a lot of people. I follow some content creators who talk about D&D horror stories. All they talk about is just these horror stories, and some of them are there's a ton of them where somebody new will show up or they'll come back and there's just a problematic player, the DM from hell, all of the above. And a lot of that is because it is now so accessible. It's just easier to fall into a bad table and someone just ruins it for you. I won't go into stories because they're not my stories. Just go find them on YouTube and listen to them. But there's plenty of them.
One podcast that comes to mind is the Eldritch podcast.
Eldritch Podblast.
Yes.
Look them up on TikTok. We're actually friends with them on TikTok. I've talked to them a few times.
Yeah, but I say again, with all things, there's truth in both matters. It's easier. It's definitely easier. There's literally Discord communities where you can just go and find and apply to go into a game, but it's easier to now get into a bad table, whereas before, I mean, you don't really have a. It's not saying you wouldn't have a bad table, but most of this was your high school friends.
Yeah.
So
and you can also there's websites startplaying.com. If you do that, you can look me up. I'm a DM there. You can pay me to play a game for you. But I definitely think it's definitely more accessible. I mean, there's free stuff everywhere. You have D&D Beyond as well that it does everything for you. You don't have to worry about counting your stats and doing all the math because it does everything for you. I think as D&D content creators, it's harder because we're trying to be successful in this, but these live plays are so saturated. There's so many. There's hundreds, if not thousands of them. And it's hard to get a grip because we weren't there at the beginning. And we don't have the production level that other people have. Even people like NADPOD, not another D&D podcast, or Dungeons and Daddies.
Dungeons and Daddies is so great.
So even like them, we don't have the production level that they do. They have a studio. They have all of that stuff. We're doing this in our dining room. Yes, we have mics and stuff like that, but we don't have all of that stuff. Eventually, we would like to. So again, if there's anybody out there that would like to donate money to help us get a studio and become a permanent partner with Dungeons and Magi, please email us at dungeonsandmagi.com@gmail.com.
We swear we are legitimately talking about other stuff. This isn't just a shameless plug for anything, but do forgive us when we do try and do it.
Because again, we're trying to be successful. We're trying to do this full time. And we want to be successful. We want to bring people the best show possible.
I just want my trailer that I was promised.
Who promised that?
Yeah, who promised that?
In my mind, I thought I was promised. When you said I would be a star, I could get a trailer.
What do you think Critical Role showed the world about TTRPGs that wasn't obvious before? Is it just the storytelling, the personalities, or is there something deeper that they've tapped into?
I have no idea because
I'm talking a bit.
Again, I was forced into this almost.
It's not like we held you at gunpoint.
No. And now you like it.
Did we Stockholm Syndrome?
Well, now I know what character to kill off.
Don't kill. No. I do like it now. I
mean, honestly, I think it really is. They just showed that with TTRPGs, there can be stories to be told. These things are very much character driven. It's that old saying that you get what you put into. You with TTRPGs, and I'm not just talking about standard D&D 5e. You get what you put into it. You're going to put your heart and soul into it. You're going to have hopefully you'll have at least a 50% give back of what you put in. And that's why it's always very critical to make sure you have a good people to play with, and people aren't just going to be problematic. They're not going to ruin it for you. But I think they showed that there are other TTRPG styles out there, because Critical Role has done a lot of other genres of TTRPGs, most all of it homebrewed, but they have done a lot of different genres, and people are like, oh, well, that was cool. What else do they have?
Yeah.
Because that's usually what will happen. People will always look for the main thing, but then they can't get it. What else do they have?
Yeah, and now they have their own stuff, Candle Obscura. They are a couple other ones that are on there. They're partnered with other people, so it's other people's podcasts that are featured on their stuff. Critical, if you hear this, we would love to do that. But yeah, again, shameless plugs.
I also feel like that some people will look up like Candle Obscura. They'll look it up. Oh, I mean, I'm not a fan of that. I like the setting of it. Hey, look, there's Call of Cthulhu. Yeah. It's just like Candles. It's in the same vein of Candle Obscura. Yeah. And then you go down further rabbit hole. Then you find Call of Cthulhu podcasts. There are ones out there.
Yeah, and Critical Role's actually getting ready to come out with a horror one.
Yeah. So I think they are. I think they have shown that these are there are a lot of other different types out there
Yeah.
besides the ones that they do. And,
Well,
I like that they're actually starting to do it.
Well, and now, like, my friend, our friend, Johnny Stanton, used to play football. He wrote a Pirates themed one, and Critical Role featured that as well. Johnny Stanton was on there. And so we're actually making dice for Johnny Stanton. So look out for that as well. You can find him, Johnny Stanton the Fourth, on TikTok. But the success of Critical Role didn't just influence D&D players; it changed the very idea of who plays tabletop games and how they're experienced. Before Critical Role, TTRPGs were seen by the broader public as niche, underground, maybe even a little embarrassing. But when you suddenly had a group of recognizable, charismatic professional voice actors laughing, crying, and storytelling with all their might, the game got a facelift. These weren't just teenagers in a musty basement arguing about THACO, which is to hit armor class 0. It's what your armor class is. It's called THACO. These weren't seasoned performers bringing tears to the eyes of hundreds of thousands of viewers. They changed everything. Once Critical Role blew up, a cascade of celebrity interest followed. We'll start with the obvious one, Vin Diesel. He famously played D&D growing up, and in 2015, Geek and Sundry released a one-shot called D&Diesel with Matt Mercer as the DM. It was a novelty at the time, a movie star playing D&D, unheard of. Now it's a feature, not a bug, and it's great. If you've not seen D&Diesel, go watch it. It's hilarious. It's amazing to watch Vin Diesel play. Joe Manganiello became a public face for modern D&D movement. He launched Death Saves, a clothing line inspired by TTRPGs, and was known for running high-powered celebrity campaigns that included big names like Tom Morello, Paul Pee-wee Rubens, and Big Show from the WWE.
Please tell me he played a dwarf or a gnome.
I actually don't know. They were just at Gary Con playing.
Yeah, I only know one of those people.
Who?
The Big Show.
You don't know Pee-wee? Pee-wee Herman?
Oh, Pee-wee Herman.
That's Pee-wee Herman.
Oh, may he rest in peace.
Yes, he played in Joe Manganiello's game.
I didn't know what his real name was.
Yeah.
If I had a,
that would be awesome to play with him.
If he showed up, I probably would be Big Show, and then he would just rip my head off because
it's the Big Show. Stephen Colbert, a longtime nerd himself, obviously the biggest thing. He's the biggest Lord of the Rings fan there is. He can tell you everything about it. He will blow Ben out of the water.
Oh, that's very easy. I'm Stephen Colbert is in his own league.
Yeah. Sat down with Matt Mercer for Red Nose Day actually twice now. That video alone brought thousands more into the fold, showing that even the most polished entertainers could geek out at the table. Suddenly, Hollywood started paying attention not just to the game, but to the format. This was the birth of the celebrity one-shot. Suddenly, you had streams and shows featuring Deborah Ann Wool. If you don't know, she's from Daredevil. David Harbour. He is from Stranger Things. Also, he's the Red Guardian.
The sheriff from Stranger Things.
He's the sheriff from Stranger Things. He's the Red Guardian in...
Okay, that guy.
Yeah, that's David Harbour. Felicia Day, obviously we know who that is. Jack Black. T-Pain, and more. T-Pain played a D&D game. And more importantly, these weren't promotional stunts. These people love the game. Dungeons & Dragons went from being a nerd test to a late-night talk show anecdote. But this is where things got interesting. The actual play format, watching or listening to people play a TTRPG, began to evolve. It wasn't just live streams anymore. It was serialized shows, cinematic camera cuts, lighting, sound design, fully produced intros. People started designing campaigns with the intention of performing them from the start. Enter Dimension 20 from College Humor's Dropout, led by the amazing Brennan Lee Mulligan. It took high-quality improv format and pushed it into a new arena. Compact, diverse campaigns with cinematic storytelling and absolute chaos energy. Others followed suit. Like we said, NADPOD, Not Another D&D Podcast, Black Dice Society, LA by Night for Vampire the Masquerade.
Ooh.
Great one. Actually, Taliesin was on that for a few. Suddenly, actual play was its own genre, with Critical Role as its first blockbuster. This also led to a strange cultural movement, the idea that DMs were becoming celebrities themselves. Matt Mercer wasn't just a game master, he was a narrator, a leader, a director, and players started treating him like one. DMs online began branding themselves. Podcasts launched with high concept hooks. Studios were built around the table, and more importantly, audiences began treating these shows as canon. Emotional arcs mattered, deaths hurt, fan theories exploded. The table became a stage, and the players became stars. And our podcast is obviously nowhere near any of these, but I remember a couple years ago, I every once in a while go professionally DM at like Gen Con and all of that. And I was doing a Gen Con, and at the time I had a DM screen that I made myself that had our logo and stuff on it. And I remember putting the DM screen up and waiting for the players to come. And I had a player come to sit down, saw the logo, and said, "Wait, you're Dungeons and Magi."
Oh.
And
Yeah,
I told you guys this. And he goes, "Oh, you're the DM, you're the Viking DM from Dungeons and Magi." And I was just like, wait, because this isn't a whole nother state. These people travel to Gen Con. And it was, I mean, again, I'm not having people line up for autographs, but it was really cool that we had somebody that recognized our stuff, because they'd watch us, even if they watched us at least once. It was somebody that we didn't know that watched us. Hell, we can't get our family to watch us, but
no. God,
do you think the rise of celebrity games helped or hurt the scene? Did it give people permission to enjoy D&D openly, or did it shift attention away from the average table?
This is a question that's a matter of perspective. So if you're a regular person, you are going to love the celebrity games. You're going to love it. You're going to you want to. You see, people look at Vin Diesel, they think of Fast and the Furious or
big bad dude.
I remember
Chronicles of Riddick.
That's how I first saw Vin Diesel as Riddick, and Pitch Black and Chronicles of Riddick. Didn't even know that he played D&D until I read it. So I'm like, wait, he plays D&D?
Also for those, Michelle Rodriguez also plays. She was in Fast and Furious and also in the D&D movie as the Barbarian, as Helga.
But I think that really helped bring more people to it. Now, again, though, if you're I'm going to use air quotes because I know this isn't the right one, a purist, someone who just wants the homeliness of it, you probably wouldn't like that. It's the same people who don't like celebrity appearances in some of their favorite shows because they think it's just tension grabbing. It's just you're just trying to fulfill some singers or whatever's dream to be in the show. I know Ed Sheeran got a lot of crap
for Game of Thrones.
Exactly. I couldn't understand it for me because I'm like, I love Ed Sheeran. Everyone's like, oh my god, they brought Ed Sheeran in. Why would they do that? It was so stupid.
And he actually wasn't bad.
And I was like, it was a little role. He said like maybe 2 sentences, and we got to hear him sing a cappella and a folksy song.
Yeah.
What are you all complaining about? So to me, Joe Manganiello, Vin Diesel, or whoever, being in a D&D appearance for whatever I'd be like, yeah, cool. Now, is it, I can't help but wonder, did they rig it a little bit because it's them? Probably, but, hey, whatever.
For me, I have no issues with it. Again, we make the comment all the time, we're WWE fans.
Yep.
I make the comment all the time, I would love to play with Xavier Woods, who is known for playing D&D. He is a super nerd. I would love to have Xavier Woods come and do a guest spot or go on his show, Up, Down, Down, and get to do something there. I have no issues with it. I think it brings another aspect in, and it kind of gets our genre out there. D&D is now becoming so widespread, and it's just becoming more popular, which benefits us.
Yeah, because it's like you have these guys that are extremely popular, that are extremely, like, I hate to say it this way, and don't take it wrong, like the manly men. Shut up. Like Xavier Woods, Vin Diesel, stuff like that you wouldn't suspect are nerds.
I mean, I wouldn't call Xavier a man. a little bitch right now.
Yeah, New Day sucks.
New
Day sucks. New Day sucks.
should have treated Big E like that.
I'm calling you out, Xavier Woods. You and
He
me,
will
my
beat the shit
my
out.
barbarian versus your barbarian.
You mean you're overpowered, King Maresh?
Yes,
Yeah.
I will win.
But like people seeing that, like, oh, okay, so these people that don't look nerdy can actually play this game. So now I don't have to feel so bad about wanting to play it.
Mm-hmm. I feel like the people who are against these kind of things, who like, oh, it's not the same, whatever. I feel like these are, and again, I'm trying not to stereotype people, but it just seems like, okay, did you play D&D because you want to have fun with as many people, or did you do it because you wanted to feel special? Because if you wanted to do it to feel special, I'm sorry, but you kind of joined for the wrong reasons. The whole point of D&D is really to bring people together and make friends. It's I can't help but wonder if Gary Gygax didn't think of like, how do I get my introvert colleagues out of their shell and into the world? Huh? Well, let's do a role play game.
Because then you also have like Will Wheaton.
Fuck you, Will Wheaton.
Shut up, Wesley.
Will Wheaton, your dice rolls suck. I want to see Pam versus
No,
Will.
we've already
Rollies.
No, we've talked about this. These two will create a horrible singularity. The planet will explode. At the very least, North America will explode.
Okay.
We can't allow that to happen.
But what if Canada explodes?
Eh.
We can let that happen.
Okay.
Let's play in Canada.
Eastern Canada. Nobody will care.
If we ever go to a con and Will Wheaton's there, I will bring a D20 with me.
No.
And we will do a roll-off.
We will clear the con.
Yeah.
So we're going to kind of skip through some questions just because I don't want this to be we could sit here for 5 hours. Who would you want to see play D&D that hasn't yet? Any celebrities that you would want to see play D&D?
Most of my favorite actors are method actors. I think they would make it weird.
You know who I would love to see going back to the WWE?
Ooh.
LA Knight.
Oh, yes.
LA Knight is like a bard.
Jacob Fatu.
Yeah.
Like any of the Fatu family.
Honestly, I could see them playing D&D.
No, I don't really have anybody. I really can't. I can't think of.
Okay, so by 2019, Critical Role was no longer just a show, it was a force, a global fandom, a cultural phenomenon. But here's where things took an even bigger turn, not creatively, but professionally. Let's rewind to their early days. From 2015 to early 2019, Critical Role was hosted on Geek and Sundry, part of Felicia Day's Nerdist Industries. But over time, they started to realize something important. They were creating the content, bringing the audience, and building the brand, but they didn't fully own it. Creative control, scheduling, marketing, and even monetization were tied up in corporate red tape. So in early 2019, they made a bold move. Critical Role broke off from Geek and Sundry and launched their own company, Critical Role Productions, which that is technically not their official name. Their official name is actually Meta Pigeon.
I can never do a pigeon sound.
It wasn't just about the game anymore. It was about owning the game, owning the brand, and owning the future. With this came a new era, cleaner production, tighter branding, a dedicated team, and full control over the IP. They hired editors, social media managers, merch designers, legal counsel, the works. Their shows now ran under their terms, and the fans followed without hesitation. But the real shockwave came later that same year with the Kickstarter that changed the crowdfunding history. On March 4th, 2019, Critical Role launched a Kickstarter to fund an animated adaptation of their Campaign 1 characters, now known as the Legends of Vox Machina. The original goal, $750,000 to make a single 22-minute pilot episode. By the way, that's how much it costs. They hit that goal in under 1 hour, and then they kept going. By the end of the campaign, they raised over $11.3 million, making the most funded film and TV Kickstarter of all time. Not for a Hollywood film, not for a Marvel spinoff, but for a D&D show made by voice actors. And I remember watching they have what's called the State of the Roll, which is where they do announcements. I remember when they hit this, they did a State of the Roll, and the camera opens to Matt, Marisha, and Travis sitting there like this. mouths open, just staring at the camera. And after like 5 minutes, they were like, I don't know what to say. We hit the fucking goal and exceeded it. And they started doing stretch goals. And now obviously we're waiting on a new season. And now we have the Mighty Nine animated series that should be done soon.
The Mighty Nine, which characters are that?
That is Caleb, Not, Jester,
Okay.
Ford, Caduceus. Well, it'll start out as Molly and Yasha. Ashley's Yasha, her barbarian.
No, I like Jester.
So this was a moment, not just for Critical Role, but for independent creators everywhere. It proved that fandoms will fund the stories they believe in. Nerd culture has spending power and ownership matters. And Amazon noticed The Legends of Vox Machina was picked up for full production and global distribution through Prime Video, giving it a 2-season order, later extended to 3. Now the Critical Role crew wasn't just streaming sessions, they were showrunners. This kind of success created an industry ripple effect. Suddenly, Kickstarter and crowdfunding became a viable launchpads for new actual play content. Third-party RPG books, dice makers, miniature companies, you name it. People realized you don't need a studio to make something big, you just need a loyal audience and a vision. They also launched Darrington Press, their in-house publishing imprint. This wasn't just for D&D products, it included original board games, TTRPG systems like Candle Obscura, and eventually new IPs built entirely from scratch. The Critical Role cinematic universe was being born in real time. And let's talk merch for a second. Shirts, hoodies, miniatures, dice sets, art prints, plushies, tarot decks, maps, pins, even scented candles. The merchandise operation became a pillar of their business, built with care and deep ties to the narrative, not just generic branding. It's the kind of fan service that feels personal, not cash grabby. They didn't just monetize the game, they turned fandom into infrastructure. By 2020 and beyond, Critical Role was no longer just a streaming show. It was a production company, a publisher, a studio partner, a merchandising powerhouse, and a media empire built on one home game. And all of this still cast lead, still rooted in the players who sat down to roll the dice back in 2012. So what is your take on Critical Role transitioning into a business? And I'll say related to ours, because obviously we have a D&D business. Did seeing Critical Role, does it help inspire you? Does it change the way you see things? Or is it intimidating? How do you feel owning a D&D company and looking at how Critical Role did everything?
Intimidating as fuck.
Well, in terms of Critical Role becoming a business, I see it as inevitable. I don't know what growing pains they went through when they started doing that. I
assume it's probably ones we're going through now.
Maybe. I can't wait for the tell-all memoirs that'll inevitably come out at some point. But I mean, I see it as, intimidating and don't take this the wrong way, grueling. Just because it's like, oh god. Because there was a couple of times where it's like, oh my god, it's just one thing after another. Kill me.
And it really was. We had a lot of. There's a reason we went to being a podcast solely. Is we had a lot of streaming issues because we started out as a live stream. We had streaming issues. We had camera issues. We had this and that, and we have players that are remote, and sometimes we have to rely on their internet and things like that. Where being a podcast made it a lot easier. We could pre-record. We actually kept that we were pre-recorded quiet for a while when we were still streaming recorded episodes, but it's pretty easy to figure out because we weren't responding to comments, things like that. And Critical Role kind of did that same thing. They quietly, especially during COVID, they quietly went to recording. And we had a lot of issues, and I mean, we still have issues. And it is frustrating. I mean, you're seeing Critical Role, Dimension 20, NADPOD, all of those places that are just booming with success, and we're on year 3, and sometimes it feels like a lifetime because we've been grinding and pushing and struggling, and like we're spinning in circles and not going anywhere. And other times it's, oh shit, we've already been doing this for 3 years.
I mean, going off of the production and that, because when we first started, I was the one that was recording everything and streaming everything. Mm-hmm. So I'm trying to keep an eye on the stream as well as like keeping myself immersed in this world, that it was hard, and then not catching when something went wrong, like within like 2 seconds of it, where people are like, hey, this is what's going on. And it's like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Now we need to stop this to go to fix it and all of that. It was just, it's still a lot of work.
It very much is. Like I do all of the production now. So we record it. I then, after the session, while I'm at work, because keep in mind, both Ben and I and a few others work full-time jobs. Mm-hmm. So on top of doing this, so when I'm at work overnight, that's when I'm editing the videos. Or editing the podcast, and I'm editing overnight, then I'm uploading, and then where Critical Role, they have people that are doing all of this stuff. They have people that can pay attention to it and they don't have to worry about it. They have teleprompters up there to tell them what to say. So it, and me being the CEO, being the Dungeon Master, being the, for lack of a better term, the brains behind the production and creating this. Granted, we all created this, but it's hard. Ben and Pam have seen me crash out before multiple times on this. We have almost quit this podcast numerous times because I was done. I was fed up, and it's hard. And then we got to the point where we started doing this for viewers, and we kind of lost sight of doing it for ourselves. And we noticed that the production out level was actually going down by doing it for others instead of ourselves. And nobody was getting immersed. The story wasn't there. And it was monotonous. We were showing up every Sunday, recording for 4 hours, logging off, doing the editing, coming back the next Sunday, doing this, doing that. And it wasn't fun anymore. I was not having fun.
And honestly, like when we started Echoes of Elendor, we were recording Saturdays and Sundays. So we didn't really have a break between everything. Like we were always recording Saturdays and Sundays for the first 3-4 months. Something like that, where it was back to back, where we're like, okay, now we're getting tired. And you can really hear it in some of those episodes where we're just all exhausted.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So with great dice rolls comes great responsibility. As Critical Role rose in popularity, so did the standards for what a good, quote unquote, Dungeons and Dragons game was supposed to look like. People started expecting dramatic character arcs, flawless accents, deep lore, masterful pacing, tactical combat, emotional payoffs, and all delivered with the polish of a Broadway show. At the center of all of that, Matthew Mercer, the Dungeon Master of Critical Role and the man who, for better or worse, became the face of modern DMing. Enter the Mercer effect. This term, coined by the community, describes the pressure that many new Dungeon Masters feel to perform at the level of Matt Mercer, to craft sprawling homebrew worlds, to voice dozens of NPCs with unique accents, to remember lore, improvise flawlessly, balance combat, and also just casually make your players cry from emotional catharsis. No big deal, right? And on the other side, some players came to the table expecting their DM to be just like Mercer, to run high fantasy epic sagas with beautiful maps, gorgeous minis, and seamless character integration. It's not just, can you DM anymore? It's, can you Mercer? Here's the thing. Matt Mercer is a professional voice actor, a lifelong gamer, a seasoned writer, and someone who works full-time on this campaign world. And most importantly, he's surrounded by a cast of people who elevate the material with professional level acting and collaborative storytelling. And yet he never set out to create this pressure. In fact, Mercer has publicly addressed the Mercer effect multiple times, often saying, your table is valid, your style is valid, you are enough. But still the shadow lingers. For DMs, it can create imposter syndrome. Many ask themselves, am I doing it right? Simply because they don't have the same voice chops, narrative depth, or time to prepare 3-layered city-states and interwoven NPC agendas. For players, it can lead to disappointment when their campaign doesn't feel as cinematic or emotionally resonant. And when that happens, it puts strain on the table. People forget that Critical Role is a show, edited sometimes, enhanced and built with entertainment in mind. But here's the twist: the Mercer effect isn't all bad. For every person intimidated by his mastery, there were dozens more who were inspired to pick up the DM screen because of him. People who realized it's okay to make voices, okay to make the game deep and emotional, okay to care about the story. Matt Mercer raised the bar, but not to shame others. He raised it to show what was possible when you take the game seriously and still have fun. The Mercer effect only stings when you compare your home game to a show, but when you use it as a spark, not a ruler, it becomes fuel. And I would say the discussion queue is: have you felt the Mercer effect? Me as a DM, of course. One of the things that when we first started this, one of the first questions I asked is, who has seen watch Critical Role? And we have had a few people. We have a few people that have.
I think it was Ben and I haven't, besides Vox Machina, because I think that was out when we started.
No, actually, it was
No, it
not.
wasn't.
I know,
But Elliot has, Ethan. So, and I came in and I said, I'm not Matthew Mercer. I am a voice actor, but I'm not that good. My accents aren't all there. I slip out accents. It happens. You're gonna have to deal with what I have. I try my hardest to create an immersive world, a world where you guys get lost in. I try and create emotion and I found that I was trying to write and write and write, especially for our first campaign. I wrote and wrote and wrote so much that I kind of lost this where every DM has a specialty. Obviously, Matt Mercer's is voicing and sound effects and things like that. Brendan Lee Mulligan is a monologue god. He can come up with a monologue out of nowhere. My specialty is improv. I can make stuff up on the spot, and I do better not writing. I found that I flow better not writing. I feel limited when I do write. And we found that out with this campaign. I don't really write for this campaign like I did.
Yeah, you did the first few episodes, and then you're like, wait, this doesn't feel natural. And we're like, yeah, this is very stunted because you wanted us to be able to get to these certain set. You had a set goal for the end of the to get to by the end of the episode, where it was you were kind of like rushing us along, so we didn't have the story development that we could have at the beginning.
So, as players, have you ever felt the Mercer effect? Especially with having a stream, we need to be at this level. We need to RP at this level.
Not really, because I also know that I can't do voices like everybody else. I can't do accents. I can't do anything cool like that. So that's why all my characters sound very much the same.
I just do it for fun. If I do a voice, it's because I think it would be fun. With my one character, Belvis, I just thought it'd be fun to have an Australian fighting fish. That is literally the basis of it. Do I do a good Australian accent? No, probably not. I'm sure if any Australian viewers will probably hear me and be like,
they don't listen. They're too busy being in jail.
Exactly. But that didn't stop me from doing it. Now there are just some accents I can't do because I don't do any Spanish based accents because I'm really bad at Spanish based Latin based languages. German, I can do. I feel I haven't done it yet, but I felt like I can do if I made a character that had a Germanic accent, I could do it because I used to speak a little bit more German, not so much anymore, but I lived in Germany, so I have a better idea of how the language works. But I've never really experienced the quote unquote Mercer effect because literally you guys are you're the only table I've ever played or even DM'd for, because I did DM once for everybody. And I'll never forget that. You just literally called me as I'm in my study hall I was in Delaware for Army training, and I was like, what do you want? What are you calling me for? Hey, I need you to do a one shot. I'll send you the stuff. Bye.
And then I
Okay.
Then I killed your king.
You did that later.
Yeah.
No, but he sent it to me, but it was in such a horrible service area for it. I only got A through H of the monster manual for the D&D monster manual for 5e. So I don't as I'm writing this after I did this, the guy who was in my class, he was with the Delaware Guard. I told him what I was doing. I was like, "Oh, how are you doing it? How's it going?" I was like, I hope they don't. I wonder if they'll realize that every monster and creature they're running through is only from the letters A through H.
We had your first monster was A, your second monster was B.
It was really like that. I was just like, God damn it.
And then the final monster, you had to keep increasing.
Yes, because I made the mistake because he didn't really set any parameters, so I just was like, well, it's a one shot. I don't want to start off at 1. That's just lame. So I had everyone do level 20 because I figured, okay, it's a one shot, whatever. Everyone max your shit out.
And that's where I created
Grog 2.0.
Yes.
And I
And
created
he's stronger than Grog.
Urshar.
Yeah, you're drunken dwarf barbarian. 2 barbarians, an artificer, a ranger, and I forget what else. But literally by the third person, the thing was dead. This was an abyssal creature.
I think it was Kayde, me, and we got it down to like what?
You
like
got
1
it.
HP.
Yeah, you got it down to 10, and I realized, all right, I just kept increasing everything,
Being a DM.
mostly because I was like, okay, everyone's getting one shot at this thing. So this thing was on life support because I willed it. But I don't really felt like anything. I mean, it was just. I mean, it was a one shot, but I didn't feel like I had an expectation to like, oh my god, I must create the best that I can do and do all this stuff because it's like, well, it's just for my friends. I mean, it's not like I didn't come in with it the whole who cares, but it was at the same time there wasn't like a mountain of pressure for me to create this great thing.
Well, and I think one shots are so different from campaigns because one shots, again, they're 4 hours, sometimes a second session, maybe. Where the campaign, I mean, depending on the campaign, our campaigns last 3 to 4 years ish. Our last one lasted 3 years. And so this one will be about 4 years by the time it's done. And so you have to create a big world. If I don't create a big world, where do you go?
Yeah.
I have to have all this fledged out. And so when you think of culture shifting media, your mind probably goes to Star Wars, Harry Potter, Game of Thrones, massive franchises that rewrote the rules of their genres. But Critical Role belongs in that conversation too, not because of billion-dollar box offices or theme parks, but because it rewrote expectations around storytelling, identity, and community in the nerd world. Start with the obvious: representation. Critical Role showcased characters who were queer, neurodivergent coded, mentally ill, morally gray, emotionally vulnerable, and multicultural. It wasn't played for shock or tokenism, it was real. From the quietly non-binary Fern in Campaign 3 to Beauregard and Yasha's romance in Campaign 2 to the deeply flawed Percy and Vax struggling with trauma and legacy in Campaign 1, the show told us it was okay for fantasy heroes to be complicated and messy. It normalized seeing a battle-scarred barbarian fall in love or a traumatized cleric question their faith or a rogue just trying to feel something again. That's not common in most high fantasy, where the characters are often stoic warriors or chosen ones with destiny written in gold. Critical Role made room for everybody else, the weird ones, the broken ones, the ones trying to be better but still screwing up. This resonated hard with audiences, especially those who hadn't seen themselves reflected in Tolkien-style fantasy. Especially those used to nerd culture being male-dominated, whitewashed, and emotionally repressed. And it didn't stop at characters. The players themselves became role models. Talos and Jaffe, who's spoken publicly about being neurodivergent and queer, openly embracing his identity and letting it inform his characters in ways that felt authentic and never performative. And Marisha Ray dealing with the backlash of being a woman in the TTRPG space and becoming an example of what it means to stand tall in the face of gatekeeping. It created a safe space for fans who didn't feel welcome in traditional nerd spheres. It told them not only do you belong, you're the main character now. But that's not all. Critical Role also helps how we see emotions in storytelling, especially in nerdy spaces. Before Critical Role, many fantasy games, especially in public or streaming settings, focus on humor, power fantasies, or tactical combat. But Critical Role leaned into grief, romance, shame, hope. It gave space for quiet moments, for tears, for hugs, for awkward silences, for heartbreak that actually hurt. It taught viewers and players alike that being vulnerable wasn't cringe, it was powerful. It made it okay for a grown man to cry because his paladin had to break his oath. It also helped normalize mental health conversations through fantasy analogs. Characters struggle with loss, trauma, addiction, guilt, and process it through the narrative, not around it. This approach echoed far beyond their table. TTRPG therapy groups started popping up. Fans began journaling through their characters. Teachers began using roleplay to teach empathy. Critical Role helped people connect with parts of themselves they didn't know needed a voice. And of course, let's not forget how Critical Role rebranded nerd culture itself. It used to be that D&D was shorthand for basement dweller. Now it's on Amazon Prime. Now it's something you see at Hot Topic. It's something you cosplay, something you watch with your partner on date night. Dungeons and Dragons used to be the butt of the joke. Now it is the show. And so how do you think the way the show changed? How do you think the show changed the way people tell stories at their own tables, especially us? Are we more character driven now, more open to tough emotional beats? I think for us, we had a big change from campaign 1 to this one, where we've always been role players, always.
Yeah.
It's how we started. But I feel, especially now that everybody is getting more comfortable, and there's still some uncomfortability still. There's gonna be. It's only been 3 years. You guys haven't been playing that long. You guys aren't actors. But do you feel from, I will say for us, from campaign 1 to campaign 2, because yes, we're technically on campaign 3, but listed as campaign 2, do you feel that shift of we are allowing emotional beats, we're allowing stuff to develop more?
To a point.
I mean, again, we're still early on in the campaign.
Yeah, to a point. Like, I think now that we're more playing for ourselves and not for an audience, where we're definitely getting the more character building, like the emotion and stuff like that. Because I know in campaign 1, we really were only playing for ourselves, so we had that character development. We had those emotional outbursts, where this one is kind of like, okay, let's just move on and get this over with.
Well, and I think the problem, though, with campaign 1 is there were so many deaths. Everybody, except for Kara, had at least 2 characters. So it was hard when those characters, like, obviously the first death was hardest.
Fuck you.
When Pam killed the first person, it was hard. I mean, it was an emotional shock. Pam was in tears because she was the one that caused the death.
I was in tears.
You were also worried Ellie was going to be mad.
Well, and everybody just, if you go back and listen to that episode, you can hear a...
Yeah, I was bawling my eyes out. And I'm messaging in our Discord server, like, I am so sorry. I didn't mean it.
And keep in mind, Elliot's played D&D before, so they were fine.
Yeah.
They're used to it.
But I was so worried that Elliot was going to be so pissed off and everybody else was going to be pissed off at me for killing a character. Even though it was an accident. I wasn't playing a freaking cleric. And I never said my sorcerer was smart.
Yeah, I mean, I think there was kind of too many character deaths to... Some of them hit home, like Argos dying.
Yes.
That one really hit hard. Of course, Safi dying. That one really hit hard. I think
Willow sacrificing themselves hit a little bit harder.
Yeah, but I think with so many, when you have that many character deaths, and it came up to the rolls, it kind of waters down character deaths, where we've had 1 character death in this, and 2 technically.
Technically 2, and still my fault.
But it's kind of just we've kind of pushed over.
Actually, no, 3. We've had Colin and Arthur.
I'm talking about permanent deaths.
Oh, 1.
We've had 1 permanent death.
Yeah.
And it was a part of the campaign where he just kind of washed over it and we just kind of moved on. But with this one, and again, we're early on where we're recording, we're 30 episodes in. So we still have a long way to go. There's still a lot of emotions to build and character development to happen that eventually, if a death happens, it will be emotional. It'll be super emotional.
And I think now with like that character death, because at that point we were like just running on pure adrenaline as characters, where we didn't have downtime, we didn't have this, we had to go from like one crisis to another. I think now that we're settled down and that, we could go back and explore how that death affected all of our characters. Because now we're okay, now we know where we're going to get food, we have clean water to drink, we have a permanent shelter, we have all this stuff now where we don't have to worry about how are we going to survive.
Yeah, it's not a survival campaign anymore.
My bad. I'm sorry you had to rewrite the entire campaign because of my ass.
I'm not complaining.
So for every revolution, there's resistance. And for every success story, especially one as massive as Critical Role, there comes a wave of scrutiny. Praise and influence can cast long shadows, and while Critical Role brought so much good to the TTRPG world, it didn't come without growing pains. Let's be clear, most of the cast are deeply aware of their impact. They're humble, they engage with fans respectfully, they give back constantly, but the larger something grows, the harder it is to manage perception, and that's where the criticism starts. One of the biggest recent controversies came with the launch of new content behind paywalls, namely Candle Obscura and the Midst audio drama. Midst is the one that is somebody else's that they have sponsored and brought in, which were initially only available through Beacon, which that is their own app. It's their own streaming platform. That's what I use, or through Amazon Prime. Many fans felt this was the first real instance where access became exclusive. After years of open Twitch and YouTube content, suddenly people were being asked to pay to stay up to date, creating a divide between casual fans and super fans. For a show that started in a free format and grew because of its community, the move felt like a step toward corporate streaming culture. Of course, it's fair to say they're a business now. Production costs, staff salaries, and expansion require income. But it stirred up a familiar question. When does a passion project stop being for the fans? And I will say, we subbed to them, used to sub to them on Twitch. They did not change the price. It is the same price on Twitch for a subscription monthly as it is on Beacon. It's $15. It's what I pay every month to support Critical Role. And Beacon gives you a lot more stuff. You get to be in their Discord. You get to do all that. And they talk in their Discord. You get to talk to Critical Role and stuff like that. There's also the issue of too much content. New campaigns, limited run series, minisodes, talkbacks, merch drops, side projects, graphic novels, animated series, board games, campaign books, podcasts, audiobooks. Even hardcore critters started to feel overwhelmed. The magic of one game with friends started to feel more like a sprawling media empire with dozens of access points and an unspoken pressure to keep up. It's no longer just watching D&D, it's homework. And for casual fans, the increasing volume may be off-putting. The intimacy that once made Critical Role special is harder to find when you're buried under press tours, promo clips, and product launches. On the flip side, the audience itself isn't without fault. The Critical Role cast has spoken openly about fan entitlement, unrealistic demands, and internet mobs who dissect every decision, ship, or DM ruling. Let's not forget, these are real people playing a game, but some corners of the fandom treat them like TV characters where every move is supposed to satisfy a narrative arc, and when it doesn't, social media explodes. Mercer especially has shared how heavy the pressure can be. He once described DMing for the show as exhilarating and also soul-crushing because of the high expectations and personal scrutiny it faces. People want perfection, and when you're playing live, every word is permanent. And here's a deeper cut. Some indie creators feel overshadowed or outright pushed out by the size of Critical Role's influence. Their Twitch numbers dominate. Their Kickstarter campaigns dwarf most others. Their publishing arm, Darrington Press, can afford marketing budgets that small teams can't compete with. While Critical Role does uplift other creators, they've donated to charities, signal boosted many artists, and collaborated widely. There's no denying it's hard to be seen in their shadow. Some call it the Disneyfication of D&D, a kind of accidental monopoly. They didn't intend to gatekeep the spotlight, they became the spotlight. There's even a debate about whether Critical Role unintentionally contributed to Wizard of the Coast's recent efforts to commercialize D&D more aggressively, leaning into cinematic universes, streaming plans, and monetized platforms.
I understand the frustration for trying to get your content out there because
we deal with it.
Exactly. But at the same time, you got to remember that entitlement that they say, the fan entitlement and everything, that goes both ways. We put out our product. They'll watch it or they won't. It's that adage. If you build it, they will come. All right. If you build it, maybe they'll come, maybe they won't. For better or for worse, Critical Role was the first. Yeah. They got to the finish line first. They made it. It's reality. People can, and this is where I don't like the hate that comes on Critical Role, because it's like, I get you're frustrated, but don't hate them for this, for being successful. That's exactly what you're doing. You're hating these people because they succeeded. You should be praising them. You should be praising them, celebrating them. And again, you're not entitled to their success. You didn't create this. They did.
And who knows? It could have been, if we started in 2012 or 2015 and we were the first ones, we could be Critical Role sized. Their foot was in the door and they pushed their way through and got there first.
Exactly.
If we were first, this may be a whole nother thing.
And I've said this to other people, including you, when we've had discussions about our stream podcast. The one thing that Critical Role had that none of us do, and it's not even their voice acting talent, that certainly helped. But what really helped them was their connections to the entertainment industry. These guys were already, I said before earlier, they're already established voice actors. They already know the talent agents. They know the producers, the directors. They know, not everybody. It's not like, Matt Mercer and Robert De Niro hanging out, but at the same time,
that's who needs to play D&D.
Oh God, he would never do it.
You talking to me?
You talking to me? But they had an edge that most of these other independent content creators didn't have. They didn't have the entertainment insider to get their leg up. They know who to contact. They know what to say, what buttons to push, what levers to pull.
They had help from Felicia Day, who's very popular. They had...
And who was already making D&D content.
Exactly. So they had that.
If we had somebody like Geek and Sundry come to us and go, hey, we want to put you on our channel that are showing millions of people, we would probably get to that level. Because then our production would be able to go up, and because they're obviously
they got more exposure. It's as simple as that. They
can't
got
hate them for it.
You can't, and it comes down to it. Then you just either you give up, and you give up your dream of trying to be Critical Role successful, because frankly, I don't think anybody is going to get to that. And as long as Critical Role and Dimension 20 are out there, or at least Critical Role is, nobody's getting to their level. But at the same time, either just move on to something else, have the realization that you're doing this for you and your friends, or dig deeper and try harder. Yeah. It really is that. Just try harder.
Yeah. And last but not least, the parasocial dynamic. Because the cast plays as themselves, fans feel connected to them personally. They laugh with them, cry with them, watch them weekly for years. While the cast is generous with their time and kindness, the emotional intimacy creates a tricky dynamic. Some fans blur the lines between character and actor, between performer and friend. And when the cast sets boundaries, takes time off, or reveals personal truths, some fans react with backlash or betrayal. That's not on Critical Role. It's a product of fandom culture at large, but it's something the show has had to navigate delicately. Um, and we've kind of went through those discussion cues. So we've talked about how Critical Role changed the game, the culture, the industry, but let's talk about how it changed us. Dungeons and Magi, our show, our passion project, our story, exists because Critical Role showed us that this kind of thing was even possible. Not just that you could play D&D for an audience, but you could do it your way. That a group of friends could sit down, share a story, and have other people care about it. That you could build a world, inhabit characters, and take emotional risks, and it could resonate beyond your own table. They didn't just show us how to play, they showed us how to believe that our game, our weird little homebrew world, could matter. We've never tried to be Critical Role. We can't be, and we don't want to be. But what they gave us was permission to take what we love seriously, to craft arcs with meaning, to let our characters bleed a little, to cry when a choice breaks someone, to laugh until we can't breathe, and then keep rolling. The Mercer effect? Yeah, we felt that too. The pressure to live up to something bigger than us, to wonder, is what we're doing enough? Is it entertaining enough? Epic enough? Are we telling a story worth listening to? But the answer is always this: if it's real to us, it will be real to someone else. And that's what Critical Role reminded us of. That the power of a tabletop game doesn't come from production quality or celebrity voices or even flawless storytelling. It comes from heart, from the magic that happens when people care about the world they're building together. So every critter, every casual listener, every DM out there second guessing whether their game is good enough, we're with you. We're playing this game our way, and we're proud of it. Because Dungeons and Magi isn't Critical Role, and that's exactly the point. We're Dungeons and Magi. This is our story, and we're just getting started. Um, I would say I can answer a lot of this. Like, what made us realize we could do this too? And I was obviously, you guys were skeptical from day one. None of you wanted to do this. I forced everybody into it, and most of the days, almost everybody's still skeptical. I have still heard everybody go, yeah, if we do this, if we can do this. Um, I I was just like, what? I basically said, what will it hurt? It's not going to hurt anything. If we put this out there, people see it, great. If we make a name for ourselves, great. If we're not losing anything by doing this. And of course, we're self-funded. I mean, we pay for everything ourselves out of our own pockets. We have some physical sponsorships that give us physical items, but we're doing this all on our own. We are building the foundation that eventually maybe this will become something. Hopefully it will become something. And as I mean, we can have moments of naysaying and, oh, if we do this. And I personally try and always say when we hit this mark. I've caught some people saying if, or almost, doubt's going to be there. Mm-hmm. It's hard. This is not an easy thing to do. Again, when it's so saturated. And
I mean, I've had my doubts and that, but I'm like, okay, we can do this. Let's try, at least try.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So then I'll ask both of you this individually. What do you want listeners to know about why we do this? Why do we play D&D? Why do we stream D&D? Why do we make this a show? And it could be why you feel like you do it personally, besides being forced.
Well, being forced, but also, this is better than murder and just being angry and blowing up, where you can just be like, okay, murder hobo time activated, like in our WrestleBoro Mania, where I accidentally killed someone and I didn't mean to because I rolled a natural 20.
I mean, all jokes aside, you're really not forcing us. I mean, realistically, if Pam and I put,
everybody could quit.
That's what I'm getting at. Realistically, if we wanted to, we put our foot down and be like, we're done. But we don't want to do that because it's fun and it tells stories that I personally don't hear around there, and that's kind of why I try and write for my own little personal writing. I try and write stories and tell stories that I don't feel anybody tells.
Yeah, and all jokes aside with the murder hobo stuff.
She's a murder hobo.
Yes. Where it says the man who sent a cart into a shack full of guards.
God, there's like 5 things I'm never gonna be on my deathbed and he's gonna bring him
up. The man who tried to kill a level 20 warlock as level 1.
Shopkeeper.
I quit. I'm out. See you later, everyone.
So, and I will say one of the things for me, of course, I want this. This is my baby. This is my pet project. Again, nobody wanted to do this. I'm the one that wanted to, and then I say I force people. I kind of did. I forced everybody to do this, and then everybody fell in love with it.
Yeah. Star Wars: The Old Republic. I still remember the day Ben joined a guild with Kayde, and everybody's like, you need to get your wife to play. You need to get your wife to play. You need to get your wife to play. After I joined, the only person that
stayed around
was Kayde. Yeah. And he taught me everything I needed to know about role playing. Mm-hmm. Like how to improvise everything and all of that. And do I want to quit some days? Do I say, yeah, I quit? Yes. But it's more, I love it. It's a way to express yourself that you normally can't express. Like you can't put voices to those dark thoughts because you'll be put in a hospital or stuff like that, where you can act it out and try to figure out different ways to feel better, essentially.
Yeah, and that's kind of something I wanted to say too, is for me, especially D&D has always been that escape, that the mental health issues, the depression, the anxiety, the even going as far as the suicidal tendencies. I mean, that's been there. But D&D has really been that place where I can escape into a world. I'm building this world that is mine. I built this. I created this, and my friends are getting to jump into this world and experience these special things I've created. And I always try and put some real life stuff in there. I will always put McDonald's or Waffle House or Walmart or something like that in there, because it gives you that hint of the real world while making fun of it, of course. But you can, with putting that real world in there, you're also putting all those things that are in your head into this and kind of pushing past them. And that's why we started Dungeons and Dog Tags, is to do this exact thing. And we're going to be closing here. And one thing I wrote down that came to me is, and I love this, is Critical Role may have opened the door, but we're building our own damn tavern. And so we've traced the rise of a home game that turned into a global force. We've talked about the joy, the pressure, the business, the backlash. We've talked about how Critical Role changed the landscape and how it changed us. But if there's one takeaway from all of this, it's this: you don't have to be Critical Role to matter. You just have to care about the story you're telling. The real gift that Critical Role gave the world wasn't polished streams, epic boss fights, or clever NPCs. It was the reminder that shared storytelling is sacred, that it's okay to feel things at the table, that nerds can take up space and create spaces that are welcoming, weird, and wildly imaginative. Whether you're playing in a studio or your kitchen, whether your character has a 10-page backstory or none at all, whether your maps are 3D printed or drawn in a napkin, you're still part of this movement, this renaissance, this rebellion against cynicism. You are keeping the magic alive. And for us, we're going to keep us telling our story too. At Dungeons and Magi, we're not trying to be the next Critical Role. We're trying to be the first Dungeons and Magi. We're telling stories with hearts, with messiness, with laughter, and with the kind of chaos that only happens when dice hit the table and no one knows what'll happen next. Because that's what this is, in the end. It's a roll of the dice, a leap of faith, a story that only your table can tell. To the critters out there, thank you for proving this can work. To the skeptics, the game has changed. Come take a seat. And anyone who's ever wondered if they're doing it right, you are. Keep playing. And we'll wrap up with these couple final questions. What do you want to see next in the world of TTRPGs that you haven't seen yet?
No idea.
Honestly, I don't know either. It seems like every month, every week, there's something new being brought in. Somebody's decided take a new take on a mythology or something like that, and I'm loving it. I just wish I had the funds to purchase them all. Really. I know I've contributed to one TTRPG that's based on a darker version of Greek mythology. I can't wait for that to get published. It's going to be a while. It's going to be a little bit, but I think that's something that we would all love to do. I would just say, I would love just to start visiting some of the fandoms that have more immersive worlds and maybe start revisiting, trying to see if they're compatible to make one like that. I'm sure if there's a fandom out there are people out there who will love to play a role-play game about them.
For me personally, I want to see more of the mental health side of things in the TTRPG world. I want to see more stuff like our new nonprofit. I want to see TTRPGs that help people instead of just it being just a game. It's a tool. And again, I know you guys aren't as into Critical Role as I am, but if you could, for anything that they've done, if you could thank Critical Role for one thing that they've done for the TTRPG world, what would it be?
Thank you for sticking with it.
Thank you for showing that it's not only nerds that can play D&D.
Yeah. And for me, and I guess we'll end on this note. For me, it's thank you for existing. If Critical Role didn't exist, I wouldn't either. I wouldn't be here to play this stupid game. I wouldn't be here to make up these stories and laugh with my friends and all of that. And one day we would all like to sit in front of Critical Role and thank them. And yeah, so again, this was a little bit longer than our typical. Normally our Scarlet Tavern goes an hour and a half. We went a little bit over that, but hopefully you guys like the nerdy stuff. Again, it's not just going to all obviously be Critical Role. It's mostly going to be TTRPG stuff, but we're going to hit different topics here and there. And if you guys like them, let us know, because we have no issues with having another podcast where that's what this is, and we bring in people. Who knows, maybe we could get Matt Mercer, Marisha Ray. They've done plenty of podcast interviews, and we can get them in here and talk to them.
We would be all too starstruck even
Nah,
speak.
I'm a professional.
For those of you who can, obviously, I just gave the most skeptical look toward Kayde ever because it would probably be me having to do the interview because, again, you two would just be like, don't even lie.
I'm a professional actor.
Okay, I would just be sitting there like, I don't know what to talk about. I don't know what to ask.
But yeah, so if you guys like it. We like getting to talk about some stuff, some lighter stuff as well that
Especially with some of the stuff that's coming up.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about murder all the time and stuff like that, but this is a little lighthearted, so we don't have as much of this really this year because we're pretty set on what we have this year. We just kind of threw this in, but next year is really when we're going to start hitting a lot of the D&D stuff and the TTRPGs and those discussions. And again, it's really more open discussion than it is just me sitting here talking and kind of going through stuff. So, anybody with any final words of wisdom?
Nope.
We know there's no wisdom there.
Wisdom saving throw.
I don't have any dice.
So, with that, we want to thank you all for visiting the Scarlet Tavern. Please remember to turn in your glasses, push in your seat, and as always, tip the bard. And please join our D&D podcast, Dungeons and Magi. Comes out every Wednesday at 8 a.m. wherever you get your podcast, as well as YouTube. Check out our website. We have some great stuff going on there. You can buy some dice. And we will soon be having our own system coming out that we're currently getting ready to play test. So if you're interested in play testing a new system, send us an email and we will have you play test. You get to get it for free. So again, everyone, have a good night.
Good night.
Tink.
Tink.